Chapter 10: Managing Human Resources. If a business is to be successful, it must have sufficient numbers of employees who are qualified to perform the required duties. Managing the quantity and quality of employees is an important business function, and we manage the quantity through hiring and firing, and we manage the quality through training, compensation, etc. So, human resource management, as the slide says, are all activities involved in determining an organization's human resource needs, as well as acquiring, training, and compensating people to fill those needs. Human resource management has increased in importance over the last few decades. Effective HR managers are aware of changing employee conditions and use them to increase efficiency and productivity. The importance of human resource management can be seen by every manager in an organization because they will practice some functions of HR at all times. So it is important that we learn what human resources is. After determining how many employees and what skills are needed to achieve organizational objectives, a firm must ascertain how many employees it currently has and project how many may be retiring or leaving. Current and forecasted employee requirements then enable the manager to determine hiring and qualification requirements. Let's start talking about the processes of job analysis. Well, for job analysis, for example, this means determine the communication, writing, reading, math, computer skills, etc. Needed to perform the job. You need to determine the level of education needed to perform the job. This is the first thing that a manager or HR manager needs to do. We call them in human resource management KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. And you will, if you're in the HR field, or if you ever hear a manager, they will say something like, we need to determine the KSAs. And what they mean is they need to determine the knowledge, skills, and abilities, which are part of the job analysis. After you have the job analysis done, then you can move on to the job description, which is when you determine the job title, the tasks to be performed, responsibilities, etc. Once you have determined that, then you can move on to the job specifications, where you will be specifying the education needed to be performed to perform that job, the experience needed to perform that job, as well as the personal and physical characteristics needed to be able to perform that job. Both job descriptions and job specifications are used to develop recruiting materials such as newspaper and online advertisements. Let's now, once you have all of that done, you can start recruiting employees. And what is recruiting is the formation of a pool of qualified applicants from which management will select employees. There are two sources for that, internal and external. The internal approach, of course, is the organization's current employees, and this approach is relatively inexpensive because you don't have to spend money to post the ads, and that's what certainly costs a lot of money. You still have to schedule interviews, but certainly this can be done much easier since the people are internal to the organization. External, of course, these are sources from outside the organization, employees that are not currently employed. This is more expensive than hiring from within because now you have to advertise, and that costs a lot of money. Recruiting for entry-level managerial and professional positions is often carried out on college campuses. And once the economy keeps recovering, you will see more companies coming to our college to be recruiting students. Hopefully by the time you graduate, this will start happening even more than it happens now. For managerial and professional positions above the entry level, employment agencies or executive search firms, which are also called headhunters, are often used to be doing this. Let's now talk about the selection process, and that includes reference checking, testing, interview, as well as the application. But we're going to start with the selection process, which is the process of collecting information about applicants and using that information to decide which ones to hire. The first step is the application, and that's why it's at the bottom of the steps. The applicant usually fills out an application with information and current salary, reason for seeking a new job, years of experience, availability, and level of interest. The goal at this stage is to get acquainted with the applicants and eliminate those obviously not qualified for the job. Then move on to the second step, the second phase, which is the interview. The interview provides in-depth information both to the company and to the prospective employees, and I'm sure you probably all have been interviewed before. Some common interviews are one-to-one. There's also the team interview, where you actually interview with a team of people from the company. We have also seen now an increase in phone interviews. Companies don't have a lot of time to get applicants in the company, so they will just schedule a time to call you, and they will be making a phone interview first before they decide to even call you for a personal interview. Sometimes now they don't even schedule the interview. You put an application in and they will call you at a random time to give you a phone interview. The next stage is stage number 3, which is testing. And this is, you may have different tests for this. It could have ability, performance, aptitude, IQ, or personality tests may be given to determine whether an applicant has the necessary skills or his or her ability to fit into the firm's culture. Polygraph or lie detector tests once were a common tool for evaluating applicants' honesty, but they were restricted in 1988 to specific government jobs and jobs involving security or access to drugs. Applicants may also undergo physical examinations to determine their suitability for some jobs. Many companies require applicants to be screened for illegal drug use, but this practice is certainly controversial. I know in a previous job that I had, we used to do bilingual testing because we were hiring for people that needed to be bilingual in English and Spanish. So what we did is we would test employees on not only their oral English and Spanish abilities, as well as their written English and Spanish abilities, to make sure that they were able to read as well as speak both English and Spanish. No matter what test that you are offering, your test needs to be validated. Employers must be able to demonstrate that scores on such tests are related to job performance, so that no one race or one type of people has advantage in taking the test. There have been some companies that have been sued because their tests were not validated. There are some organizations out there, national organizations, for example, like NACTI, where they provide tests that are validated throughout the nation. If you take one of the tests from this company, they can provide you with results from all over the nation that you can compare to, so they are certainly validated. It's not a test that was developed by just one person and nobody knows what's on it. The next step is reference checking. This is the final step, and it involves verifying educational background and previous work experience. Background checking is important because applicants sometimes misrepresent themselves on their applications or resumes. Many organizations will confirm employment while will not release details about the quality of a previous employee's work. There's certainly two thoughts of school in this. Sometimes companies, if you work there, they'll say you can give a reference to anybody. Other companies may not let you do this. Reference checking is important, and it should not just stop at checking the personal references that have been given on the application. If they were given on the application by the applicant, I'm sure the people that are listed there are probably going to give you a good reference on that person. You should try to go beyond that. For example, call all of the supervisors on the job application. You need to get permission from the applicant about this, but even if they're not listed as references, they may give you more information on this. So do certainly due diligence on checking references. There is some controversy about credit bureau checks. You do need to get the applicant's consent to do this. Some organizations do check people's credit, but other organizations don't want to do this because they say that no, if somebody has bad credit, it could be because they weren't able to pay a hospital bill, and that should not prevent them from getting a job. But some organizations do use it. It certainly is controversial. Let's now talk about some legal issues in recruiting and selecting new employees. Legal constraints and regulations are present in almost every phase of the recruitment and selection process, and violations can result in lawsuits and fines. The Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 bans discrimination in employment. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, is a federal agency set up to enforce Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and specifically charged with increasing job opportunities for women and minorities and with eliminating job discrimination based on race, religion, color, sex, national origin, or handicap. As a result, employers must not impose sex distinctions on job specifications, job descriptions, and newspaper ads. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 also outlaws the use of discriminatory tests for applicants. The Equal Pay Act mandates that men and women who do equal work must receive the same wage. So, do women earn the same as men? No, women in full-time management and professional jobs average 73% of men's income. African American women earn only 68%, and Latinas, like me, only earn 57%. 1 year out of college, women earn 80% of what men earn. A decade later, women earn only 69% as much as men. It also depends on the job. For example, in education, women earn 95% as much as men, which is good for me, I guess. In math, women earn 76% as much as men, so it's not as good as if you're in an education field. Let's talk about the age discrimination as well as the ADA. The Age Discrimination in Employment Act passed in 1967 and amended in 1978 specifically outlaws discrimination against people between the ages of 49 and 69 and also outlaws policies that require employees to retire before the age of 70. The American with Disabilities Act, ADA for short, prevents discrimination against disabled people. People with AIDS are also considered handicapped. You cannot deny people a job. You cannot deny a person a job because they test positive for AIDS. Here are some interview questions. These were popular more in the mid-2000s, and even though they're popular, they're really not very good questions. The questions that you have above are not up to date and may not give you the answers you're looking for, especially the first and the last one. More specifically the last one. You really can't get much out of asking somebody if you were an animal, which one would you want to be? That's not going to give you a good answer. Your question should always be job related. Behavioral interviewing is a way that we use now to get better results from an interview. This is what employers are using. And there are different ways that you can certainly use behavioral interviewing to help you in job recruiting. So let's talk more about behavioral interviewing. And by the way, this is not in your book, so you may want to take some notes on that. Behavioral interviewing was developed in the 1970s by industrial psychologists. Currently, most organizations are using behavioral interviewing to some degree. Behavioral interviewing is based on the premise that the most accurate prediction of future performance is past performance. It is better than you having to speculate how you would react to something. The research says that companies that invest time and energy in behavioral interviewing are able to select and attract top employees. It is difficult to make up behavioral stories, and that is why this method is popular. It is hard for people to lie. Now, not all questions should be behavioral, but it is a good idea to have a good combination of them. Let's look at the example above. This says the traditional question says, are you a hard worker? If you ask that question to anyone, of course they're going to say, yes, I'm a hard worker. So you're not learning a lot about the applicant because you're pretty much setting them for that. Who's going to answer, no, I'm not a hard worker? A behavioral question would turn this into a better answer. So the behavioral question would ask, give me an example of a time when you went above and beyond the call of duty to get the job done. By asking this question, you're asking for a specific example from the applicant to give you something they have already done. And for example, if they say, well, I have never went above and beyond the call of duty, well, then you know what type of employee they are. They're not a hard worker. And then if they just say, well, I went above and beyond the call of duty because I get to work 2 minutes before I'm supposed to start. Well, that's not going above and beyond the call of duty, not what we normally consider going above and beyond the call of duty, but for that employee, it might be. So then you can determine, but whatever example they give you, are they really a hard worker or not? In that example, coming 2 minutes before work starts, I wouldn't consider somebody being a hard worker. So then you determine, well, this person really isn't. But when somebody says, last weekend, my supervisor called and they needed people to come in. I already had plans. However, I was able to change those plans, and then I came in and worked all weekend because I knew that it was important for the organization to have enough employees to run it. Something like that would certainly be an example of somebody who's a hard worker. So again, you determine what it is based on the answer, but you don't want to set them up with, again, the traditional question of, are you a hard worker? Another example is the tradition in a company, for example, let's say that they need people to work in teams. A traditional question would say something like this. In this job, you will sometimes lead a team and also be part of a team. Are you a team player? Of course, you're setting them up. What are they going to say? Absolutely, I am a team player. I love working in teams. When in fact, they may not. They may hate working in teams, and they may not be a team player. A behavioral question would be something like this. Give me an example of a time when you had to work as part of a team. What worked and what didn't? Also, give me an example of a time when you had to lead a team. What worked and what didn't? Now they're going to give you an answer that is going to be more meaningful. Based on their answer, you're going to be able to determine whether they are a good team player or not. These are some examples of traditional questions that could be turned into behavioral questions. Work on that. See what you come up with. We will discuss these ones in class. Here are some common common interview mistakes. These are things that when you go to an interview, you are the interviewee, you might be making this mistake. For example, dressing inappropriately. If you need to certainly dress in business attire, you might be able to dress in business casual attire, but it really depends on the job. Negative comments about previous employer, you don't want to do that. Even if you hate your job or your previous jobs, don't start bashing your previous employers, because that says a lot about you. If you're going to speak badly about your previous employers, you're probably going to speak badly about this employer as well. Being arrogant, nobody wants an arrogant person. You certainly need to be confident, but you need to do it without being arrogant. Insufficient answers. Do make sure that you answer all of the questions. Don't just say, oh, I don't know, or I'm not sure, because that's really not going to get you very far in the interview. And not asking good questions. As an interviewee, you certainly need to have questions prepared for the interviewer. And if you don't, make sure that you do. One of the last questions they probably ask you is, do you have any questions for us? And if you say no, I don't, that means that you're not prepared for the interview. So make sure that you do have some questions prepared. Whatever you do your research, don't lie, be professional, be prepared, and be positive. All right, so now you have interviewed the person with some great questions. You are ready to do the employee orientation, training and development, and to assess their performance. Again, more HR duties. Once selected, new hires must be oriented to the organization. The orientation familiarizes the newly hired employee with fellow workers, company procedures, and the physical properties of the company. It generally involves a building tour, introduction to workers, and distribution of manuals. Some companies now show videotapes of the procedures, facilities, and key personnel. Employee orientation could last anywhere between 1 hour, 4 hours, 1 day, 2 days, etc. At Blackhawk, our employee orientation lasts 2 full days, and is very comprehensive. I mean, they do everything that is that I have just mentioned that it needs to be done. Now once we move to training, training is teaching employees how to do their specific job tasks. We have what is called on-the-job training. This allows workers to learn by actually performing the tasks on the job. Somebody, could be the supervisor or somebody else in the organization, perhaps another employee that performs the job, will do the on-the-job training, will show the person what they need to do. We also have, of course, classroom training that teaches employees with lectures, conferences, videotapes, case studies, and web-based training. Companies use a variety of this. They may do some on-the-job training, which is called OJT for short, or some classroom training to prepare the employee to do their job. Then development is training that augments the skills and knowledge of managers and professionals. This is something that should be done all the time. It's not something that is only done during the first week of somebody being on the job. Once you have trained the person and they're working, we will need to work now on assessing the employee performance. And a performance appraisal is what we use. A performance appraisal identifies an employee's strengths and weaknesses on the job. It has 3 main objectives. Number 1, it provides employees with feedback on how they're doing and what they need to do to improve their performance. Number 2, it provides a basis for determining how to compensate and reward. And number 3, it provides the organization with information about the quality of its selection, training, and development activities. Performance appraisals may be objective or subjective. If you are very good about doing coaching and training sessions, your performance appraisal is going to be more objective. Objective assessments are quantifiable. Subjective assessments are used when jobs do not lend themselves to objective appraisals. A ranking system is used to assess various performance factors. Another performance appraisal method used is the 360-degree feedback system, which provides feedback from a panel that typically includes superiors, peers, and subordinates. Most typically, the performance evaluation is done by the manager every 3 months, 6 months, a year, etc. No matter where you are a supervisor, you should always be continually continuously evaluating your employees, and that is done through training and coaching sessions. Perhaps you want to have a coaching session every month, and then you give feedback to the employee on a monthly basis, so that at the end of the year all you need to do is gather all of the results of those coaching sessions, and then you just summarize it into the performance appraisal, so that nothing is a surprise at the end of the year. An employee should not go an entire year without feedback. Feedback should be given constantly through coaching sessions, feedback, etc., etc. That's something the job of a manager is to continuously give feedback to an employee. Let's discuss now how we compensate the workforce. And we certainly have I'm sorry, let's discuss now employee turnover. I apologize for that. There sometimes when you hire people, they're going to stay, but a lot of times you're going to have employee turnover through promotions, through transfer, and through separation. Turnover, this occurs when employees quit or are fired and must be replaced by new employees. It results in lost productivity. The fees to recruit new employees are certainly very expensive. Management needs to devote time to interviewing, and there's cost to getting new employees. Turnover is not always an unhappy occasion when it occurs in the form of promotions or transfers. If one of your employees gets promoted or transferred to something they want, then it's great. And as a manager, you need to be preparing your employees for promotions and transfers. A promotion, of course, is an advancement, or what we call a vertical movement within an organization to a position with increased authority, responsibility, and salary. In some companies, the length of time or service determines who should be promoted. A transfer is a move from one job to another within the company. The transfer employee remains at the same wage and job level. And sometimes employees certainly do this. They don't always want to go up to a promotion, but maybe do something different, earning the same amount of money, but just doing something different. They might be ready for that. A separation is a departure of the employee from the organization because of resignation, retirement, layoff, or termination. Certainly, retirement is great. If you get somebody that has been there for a long time and wishes to retire, that's great. Employees may be terminated or fired for poor performance, violation of work rules, absenteeism, and so on. And I'm sure you have probably seen this. You have probably seen employees that have been terminated for many different reasons. Recent legislation and court decisions require that companies fire employees fairly, just cause only. Managers should therefore exercise care to warn employees when their performance is unacceptable and may lead to dismissal. Wisconsin is a state that is called at will, but at will is not as longer acceptable. You need to fire people fairly, just for cause only. Let me give you an example. What does it mean to be at will? Since we are an at-will state, we can fire people for whatever reason we want. We can fire people for wearing a green hat. We can fire people for not coming into work on time. We can fire people because we don't like what they're wearing. We can fire people with what they say, etc., etc. That's what it means to be at will, that you can fire for whatever reason you want. However, as I mentioned before, we have had a lot of legislation and court decisions that require companies to fire employees fairly and for just cause only. So for you, that means for you future managers, you need to make sure that you document, so that employees don't sue you after they have been fired. And you shouldn't be really firing people because of their green hat. You need to have just cause, and you need to make sure that you document that, because somebody that gets fired, they may sue the company, and it is up to you, the manager, to prove that it was their fault, not yours. So again, I caution you against firing people for whatever reason. You do need to have all of your ducks in order. Cross your T's and dot your I's. Um, Usually, a function of economic trouble is certainly layoffs. That's something that we have seen quite a bit in our area over the last 4 years. Sometimes they're temporary. Employees may be brought back when business conditions improve. Because of the expense of recruiting and training new employees, well-organized human resources departments try to minimize losses caused by separations and transfers because they do cost the company a lot of money. Now let's talk about compensating the workforce with time wages, piece wages, and commission. Designing fair financial compensation plans for employees is important because wages and salaries are a substantial portion of an organization's expenses. Wages that are too high may result in high-priced products, while wages that are too low may harm morale and result in costly turnover. Designing a fair financial compensation plan is a difficult task. A wage salary survey tells a company how much compensation comparable firms are paying for specific jobs that the firms have in common. And you do want to be within what other companies are paying or above. You don't want to be the company known to be paying the low wages all the time because you're not going to attract good employees that way. Wages are financial rewards based on the number of hours the employee works or the level of output produced. This is again, if you work 40 hours, you get so much per hour. Time wages are based on the number of hours worked. They are easy to compute but provide no incentive to increase productivity. If you know that you work 10 hours for $10 an hour, you know exactly how much you're going to get at the end of those 10 hours. And again, that is great, but you do know that employees just know that as long as they work their hours, they're going to get paid. So they don't provide incentive to increase productivity. Piece wages are, on the other hand, are based on the level of output. A major advantage of piece wages is that employees are encouraged to supervise their own activities and to increase outputs because they know that the more they produce, the more money they're going to get. So this actually does create an incentive to increase productivity. We don't see a lot of piece wages. We do see more of this in the agricultural field. The piece wage, if for so much that you are collecting, if you have to go and do corn, detassel corn, and pick corn, if that is your job, you may not get paid per hour. You might get paid on piece wages, how many ears of corn you have picked. So that's something that's used more in agriculture, but we do have some companies that still use piece wages. Commissions. These are payments to an employee for a fixed amount or a percentage of the employee's sales. This method motivates employees to sell as much as they can. We do see this method in sales positions, of course. And sometimes, their compensation could be sky's the limit. We do sales jobs where they're making six-figure salaries because they are on commission. Of course, it is also something that is hard to work on their commission base because you don't have a regular base pay that at the end of the month you know exactly how much you're going to get. If you don't sell, you may work the entire month and you don't earn anything. So that's why people that work on commission are very determined, and they need to be motivated because they know if they don't make a sale, they don't get paid. We also have, of course, other ways of compensating the workforce, such as salary, bonuses, and profit sharing. A salary is a financial reward calculated on a weekly, monthly, or annual basis. This method is associated with white-collar workers and professionals. At BTC, we do certainly have people that are on that are work on time wages. They earn a per hour rate. We also have people that are on salary, administrators and instructors. We are on a salary. We know exactly how much we're going to make every 2 weeks because that's what our contract, that's what our salary has been determined to be. There's other forms of financial compensation such as bonuses. These are in addition to regular compensation and are given as rewards for exceptional performance. People are motivated by bonuses, certainly in addition to your base pay, and we do have a number of companies that use this. Profit sharing is also another one. It's a distribution of a percentage of company profits to the employees whose work helped generate those profits. And some organizations do offer this, but not many of them. Employee stock ownership plans, which are ESOPs, have gained in popularity in recent years. Profit sharing can motivate employees to work hard because increased productivity and sales mean that the profits or stock dividends will increase and each employee will be seeing this. Here's an example of some retention methods. These are some things that companies do to keep their employees in addition to just a base salary. Tuition reimbursement, better compensation benefits. Certainly people do look for benefits, health insurance, etc. that they need. Flexible hours and schedules. We do see that employees are offering this because they do want to keep employees, and if you are able to flex your hours, certainly is going to probably help you be at that company longer. Mentoring programs, profit sharing, exercise facilities, all of this are certainly retention methods that companies do use. Benefits. Let's talk about benefits are non-financial forms of compensation provided to employees, such as pension plans, health insurance, life insurance, sick leave pay, vacation pay. Some companies even offer credit unions at their organization, health programs, childcare, etc. Such benefits increase employee security and, to a certain extent, morale and motivation. A benefit increasingly offered is the Employee Assistance Program, EAP. Most EAPs offer counseling for and assistance with employees' personal problems that might hurt job performance if not addressed. For example, drug and alcohol abuse, fitness programs, and so forth. EAPs help reduce costs associated with poor productivity, absenteeism, and other workplace issues by helping employees deal with personal problems that contribute to these issues. How this works is a company will contract with a third party or organization that offers employee assistance program, EAP, and their employees, the company's employees, can send can call this people at this company, at this EAP firm, if they run into trouble, if they have any questions, if they have any problems such as drug abuse, alcohol abuse, even financial issues. They can call, and these EAP companies have counselors and staff that will help the employees. The EAP company just bills your company on a monthly basis, but they don't tell them who has called, what the problem is, or anything. So all of this is confidential, and it is something that it's a very good service to offer employees. I know we offer EAP services for BTC employees. So check with the organization, see if they offer this, and once you're a manager, perhaps look into this, look into offering EAP services for your employees. Companies try to provide the benefits they believe their employees want, but diverse people may want different things. Some companies use flexible benefit programs to allow employees to choose the benefits they would like, up to a specified amount. This is what we call cafeteria benefits. For a certain amount of money, you can get so many benefits you choose. For example, you may not need childcare, but you certainly need health insurance, so you choose one or the other. We don't see a lot of companies do this because it becomes a little bit more expensive for the company. Pretty much when you start working somewhere, they just tell you what the benefits are, and you can decide whether you take them or not. This was a survey done by USA Today. It's it was done in 2001, so it's over 10 years old. And it says, what American workers prefer, and, that American workers prefer happiness over money. Well, this is true once employees earn so much enough money to cover their basic expenses. After that, certainly job satisfaction, being paid well, having an important title, those are things that they're looking for. But until they earn enough money, money is really the most important thing. If people don't make enough to live, then they're probably not looking at job satisfaction quite yet. Here's some benefits that increase employee satisfaction, and you can see right at the top: childcare assistance, elder care programs, flexible schedules, etc., etc. Again, this was done over 10 years ago, but this has pretty much stayed the same. And if you offer all of these benefits, employees are certainly going to probably stay with the company longer, and you're probably going to attract better employees as well. Now let's talk about managing unionized employees, labor unions. 12.9% of all employed Americans are represented by a union, and over the last 2 years we have seen some states try to do away with the union, so this number is probably going to shrink a little bit. A labor union is an employee organization formed to deal with employers for achieving better pay, better hours, and better working conditions. Although unions provide employees with considerable negotiation power, union growth has slowed in recent years, and prospects for growth do not look good. Most blue-collar workers have already been organized. An increased focus on productivity and efficiency has led to more participative management, blurring the line between management and workers. Let's talk about collective bargaining. Collective bargaining is a negotiation process through which management and unions reach an agreement about compensation, working hours, and working conditions for the bargaining unit. Right now in Wisconsin, employees that work under private companies still have the right to unionize and to collective bargain. Employees that work for a public sector, right now we currently can bargain to a certain point due to the new legislation, but this is what has been changed in Wisconsin during the last 2 years the most. The objective of negotiation is to reach agreement about a labor contract, the formal written document that spells out the relationship between the union and management for a specified period of time. In collective bargaining, each side tries to negotiate an agreement that meets its demands. Compromise is frequently necessary. Management negotiates to gain or retain control over employment issues such as hiring, firing, standard schedules, and so forth. Unions focus on contract issues such as magnitude of wages, better pay, holidays, better scheduling, and benefits. Many labor contracts contain a cost of living escalator clause, which is the COLA. Here's the collective bargaining process in more detail and how it is used, the different steps that I use to do this. And when there are disputes over the labor, there's certainly different things that could be done. How do disputes are resolved? Even though the labor contract is a legal document, management and labor may interpret it differently, sometimes causing disputes. When collective bargaining breaks down, either side may resort to more drastic measures to achieve its objectives. Let's talk about labor tactics. We have picketing, strikes, boycott, lockout, and strike breakers. Picketing is a public protest against management practices, with workers marching, often waving anti-management signs and placards at the employer's plant. Strikes, these are employee walkouts, are one of labor's most effective weapons against management. However, they are a weapon of last resort, and some contracts do not have the provision to strike. A boycott is an attempt to keep people from purchasing a company's products. Now, these are the labor tactics. Now let's talk about the management tactics. Lockout is management's version of a strike. Management actually closes a work site so that employees cannot go to work and therefore they don't earn money. Strike breakers are people hired by management to replace striking employees. They're often called scabs by union members. When all of this doesn't work, you can certainly go to outside resolution, and that would be conciliation, mediation, and arbitration. Outside resolution may be necessary if other means of dispute resolution fail. In such cases, the parties have the choices we just mentioned. Let's start with the first one, conciliation. This involves the use of a neutral third party, a conciliator, to keep labor and management bargaining. The conciliator's goal is to get both parties to focus on the issues and prevent negotiations from breaking down. Number two is mediation. This involves using a neutral third party, a mediator, to suggest a solution to the problem. This third party has no formal power over labor or management. And number three, arbitration, involves bringing in a neutral third party, an arbitrator, to decide how to settle the dispute. An arbitrator's solution is legally binding and enforceable. Generally, arbitration occurs on a voluntary basis. Management and labor must agree to it. Sometimes management and labor submit to compulsory arbitration, in which an outside party, usually the federal government, requests arbitration to head off a prolonged strike. Let's now turn our attention to workforce diversity. And when we talk to workforce diversity, this means understanding diversity means recognizing and accepting differences as well as valuing the unique perspectives such differences can bring to the workplaces. The characteristics of diversity. Differences can be divided into primary differences such as sexual orientation, age, gender, race, etc. And then secondary are education, income, marital status, religious beliefs, etc. These are all the different characteristics. So we have the primary and the secondary characteristics of diversity. Primary characteristics are inborn and cannot be changed, whereas secondary characteristics can be changed. You cannot change if primary characteristics, they cannot be changed. You cannot change your age or your gender or your race, ethnicity, or your sexual orientation. Those are your primary characteristics. That's who you are. But secondary characteristics certainly can be changed. Your education, the more you get educated, that's going to change. Your work background, that will be changing as you evolve in your working career. Your marital status, your parental status, military experience, all of this are secondary and can be changed. We're all diverse in many different ways, and diversity is not just about ethnicity and race. Diversity is about so many more things. It's about weight, it's about height, it's about social status, etc. So we need to think about diversity as everything that makes us diverse. We are each unique individuals with different diverse characteristics, different primary and secondary characteristics. Why is diversity important? The United States workforce is becoming more diverse. Employment of women, African Americans, Hispanic, and other minorities, as well as disabled workers, will continue to rise. More and more companies are also trying to improve human resource management programs to recruit, develop, and retain more diverse employees to better serve their diverse customers. And the rule of thumb is whoever your customers are, you need to have also employees that meet those characteristics. For example, if you have customers that are of Hispanics, you should have some Hispanics in your workforce as well, because they will also know what your customers need and want. If your customers are mainly women, so you certainly need to have employees that are women in your workforce. You cannot just have men making decisions about customers that are female, so it's or vice versa. Again, you should have whoever your customers are, you need to have employees that also represent that whatever characteristic that is. Effectively managing diversity in the workforce involves cultivating and valuing its benefits and minimizing its problems. There are many benefits of workforce diversity, and the top one is more productive use of companies' human resources. The more diverse your employee workforce is, the certainly you're going to have more ideas that are coming to the table. Reduce conflict among employees of different backgrounds as they learn to respect each other's differences. Since we're all unique individuals, the more diverse we are, the more we learn about each other, the more we learn to respect each other. More productive working relationships, because we learn that our differences make us unique. They don't make us different, and we can develop better working relationships because of that. Increased commitment to and sharing of organizational goals among diverse employees at all organizational levels. That goes without saying. Increase innovation and creativity. That is because the more people have different ideas, the more ideas you're going to have, and therefore you can certainly have more innovations. Because if you only hire people of a certain type, certain kind, they are going to have only certain ideas, and therefore you're not going to have as much creativity and innovation. And then increase ability to serve the needs of an increasingly diverse customer base. Again, the more diverse your workforce is, the more diverse customers you're going to be able to serve. Here's some of the 20 best companies for minorities. This was done in 2006, so it probably has changed a little bit by now. When we talk about affirmative action programs, these are legally mandated plans that try to increase job opportunities for minority groups. They analyze the current pool of workers, they identify areas where women and minorities are underrepresented, and they establish specific hiring and promotion goals to resolve the discrepancy. It prohibits organizations from setting hiring quotas that might result in reverse discrimination. So you can't say we need to hire 10 more women, that's a quota. No, that's not it. What you need to do with affirmative action is to provide the same opportunity for everybody to be able to interview. So that, for example, is looking at your selection pool, looking at your interview pool, and are you just trying to interview people that are of one type of person? Perhaps you need to look at your interview pool a little bit differently. Put people that are external candidates in there, as well as internal candidates, not just put people from internal candidates. Look at men and women, look at people that have different backgrounds, and see if you can interview more people to give everybody the same type of opportunity to be part of your organization. Here's some, if you are thinking of going into HR, here's how much you might be making. So a labor relations manager looks like you would be getting quite a bit of money. Payroll manager, training manager, benefits manager. Again, there are many careers in human resources. Human resources is not just a generalist person working for HR. You can be in training, benefits, payroll, etc. There are many things that you certainly can do. So this concludes chapter 10. We are now going to do a little quiz and see if you can answer these questions. We have questions number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So the first question reads, which of the following positions is most likely to be compensated through commissions? A, counter worker at a fast food restaurant. B, bricklayer. C, automobile salesperson, and D, secretary. Okay. What is your answer? Number 2, which of the following is not an example of a benefit? A, bonuses. B, retirement plans. C, health insurance, and D, credit union membership. What is your answer? I will give you the answers once we are in class. And question number 3 and number 4. Which of the following brings in a neutral third party to settle the dispute in which a decision made by the third party is legally binding and enforceable? A. Boycott. B. Conciliation. C. Mediation. D. Arbitration. What is your answer? Number 4. Which of the following is not a benefit of workforce diversity? A. More productive use of companies' human resources. B. Reduce conflict among employees of different ethnicities. C. Increase conflict among employees of different ethnicities. And D. Increase innovation and creativity. So what is your answer? And this concludes Chapter 10.